Hi, this is Carrie with Canary Quilts, and I wanted to introduce you to this week's free pattern on my website, canaryquilts.com. I am going to be putting together a wall hanging or a table runner that utilizes a few different patterns of monsters, and this is the first one in that series. This is a Monster Two Face block, is what I'm calling it. It utilizes 2 fat quarters of contrasting colors. So basically what you'll do is you'll fuse the dark color of the face onto the light background and vice versa for the other colors, and then you sew them together in the middle to get this face. Applique around the edge here like I did I did it in a satin stitch, but you can do it in any of your favorite stitches that you want to do. So I look forward to seeing what you make, and I would love to see your pictures on my Facebook page. So when you make this block and you choose your colors, head over there and post your pictures.
Okay, so to get started on this Frankenstein block, we're going to need 2 fat quarters, and I'm using batik fabrics here, and you want them to have a really contrasting color. You're going to need the template, which is available on my website. It's a free download, canaryquilts.com, and then 2 pieces of fusible webbing. I'm using light Steamosine 2. And then if you go to the website, you grab the pattern, you can also get the measurements for cutting out the blocks for this Frankenstein block. And so I'm going to get these all cut up into the shapes and get back here and show you how to put it together. Okay, I've got my background pieces cut over here, and I'm going to make 2 blocks. I want to do a block where the fabric is like this. And then I want to do a block where it's the opposite of that, like this. So I've got 2 blocks ready to go of my background. And then I've also got 2 here that I'm going to use for the fusible, and this is what I'm going to use to cut my Frankenstein out of each of these blocks. So the first thing I've got to do is put the fusible, and I pull on mine I pull off the non-gridded paper, and I'm just going to lay it on top here and press it down. It's sticky enough to kind of hold it in place. And then I'm going to take this over to my iron, and I am going to just give it about a 3-second press, which puts the fusible onto the back of the fabric so that when we're ready to peel the paper off, it's on the fabric already. So I'm going to get these over to the iron and get them a 3-second press and fused on. Okay, I've got it lightly fused on. So now what I want to do is I want to put a light and a dark together in a pile, because these 2 I'm going to trace the image on with the pattern face up, and then these 2 I'm going to trace the image on pattern face down. So the next thing to do is get it traced onto our fabric, and I'm going to just clip these in place like that, and it'll hold it so that when I'm tracing it doesn't move. And this is a Halloween pattern, so if your tracing isn't exact, that's fine. Halloween's kind of scary and weird, and it'll be fine if it doesn't get traced perfectly. Also, if you don't want it to be exactly symmetrical, you don't have to trace all the teeth. So these two, remember to flip your pattern. Okay, these are all ready to cut out. I'll cut one out and show you how I do it. For this next part, I use an X-Acto knife. You can use a small set of scissors. I like to use the X-Acto knife. There, that's how I get that cut out. Okay, I've got all my faces cut out, and as you can see, I got what I wanted, where they're opposite of each other. So we are going to have to fuse these now to our background. And since we did the 3-second fuse of the paper, we can just peel this paper off now, and the fusible will be on the back of the fabric. So just peel carefully. Take your background fabric, and we're going to want to go raw edge to raw edge and start his head 3/4 down, the top of his head 3/4 down from the top of the background. And then just gently lay the rest of them down with the raw edges matching. And with that fusible will stick. So we'll get this, we'll get all of our Frankenstein half heads onto our backgrounds, and then we'll get them all fused together. Okay, I am going to take this over to my sewing machine now, or my iron, and I'm going to get these ironed down. And the instructions say to press for 10 seconds. Okay, now my pieces are pressed on. So we're going to want to take the opposite colors like this, and we're going to sew them 1/4 inch right here. So let's line up the top of his head, and I'll clip that. See how the bottom lines up? That looks good. I'll clip that. Then I'll just see how his teeth are lining up. Yep, that looks good too. So that one's ready to sew. Okay, so I'm going to take these over to my machine and I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam right here, and then I'm going to take it over to my iron and I'm going to iron that seam open. Okay, I've got the blocks sewn together and the contrast looks great. I just love that contrast between the two colors. And then I ironed it open on the back. So next thing to do is to applique around all the raw edges. And you're going to want a contrasting thread, or a thread that stands out to give it some outline. And this is where you can kind of audition threads. The green is variegated, so I think it will stand out because there will be different colors. Could go with like a yellow or a red. Not real sure at the moment what I want to do. But anyway, that's what you want to do, is just audition some threads for your applique. And then I'm going to do a tight satin stitch all the way around the raw edges. Okay, I'm set up over at my machine to do the applique stitching. And I didn't go with any of the threads that I had presented before. I'm going to do this fall colored variegated thread, and then on the other block I'm going to do this red or maroon colored thread. So right now I'm set up with the maroon thread and I'm going to get started. So I use coffee filters as a stabilizer so that my fabric doesn't pucker because of all the stitching I'm going to be able to do, or all the stitching that I'm going to do. So it takes about 3 coffee filters to do this one particular block. So I just set the coffee filter underneath there, and because it's so thin that when you're done it'll just rip right off from all the stitching. So I am set up on a very tight satin stitch, and my width is set at about 2.5 right now. So when I get to these small areas like the edge of the hair over here or the teeth, I'm going to even go down to like a 1.5 or a 2 width on my satin stitch. So let's get So as I get closer, I'm going to narrow the width of my stitch. So here's where I'm going to narrow it down. I think I'll go down to 1.5. And now that I'm back into a straighter stitching area, I'm going to go back to a 2.5 width. I'm going to get another coffee filter under here. Okay, I'm coming around to finishing up the outside of the Frankenstein face, and I've turned the corner onto these little pieces of hair on the side, and I've taken my stitch back down to 1.5 to finish these. So once I get past this little piece of hair here, I'm going to go back to 2.5 and meet up with my prior stitch. I like that red. I like how it really outlines the face. I think I'm going to do red on both of them. I'm not going to do two different ones. I'm just going to do the red. It looks so nice. Okay, so now I'm going to do the interior raw edges. And instead of being at 2.5, I'm going to go down to 2, especially because they're smaller pieces. And when I get down to the teeth, I probably will even do a smaller. Okay, I've got the eyes done, and I'm moving on to the teeth, and since they're a little smaller, I am going to put the width of my stitch down to 1.5, so it's not quite as wide. Okay, I've got them all finished satin stitching around all the raw edges. And I really like how that red turned out. Kind of makes him look a little menacing. And here's the other one. So the only thing left to do on this is take the coffee filters off. And as you can see, they rip off pretty easily. And in no time, you've got yourself a couple of quilt blocks to go either toward the wall hanging, or a table runner, or just a little mini quilt. Whatever your heart desires. This quilting's very personal. And just because I say to do a satin stitch doesn't mean you have to do a satin stitch. You can do whatever stitch you want. Whatever stitch you like. So there we go. Like I said, this pattern is available. The Frankenstein is available on my website in our free resource library, canaryquilts.com. And then I did a blog post showing all the material cuts for this also. So you can head over there, grab the pattern, and start to making a cute little quilt. So I appreciate you coming along this journey with me, watching. I hope you enjoy making this quilt, and if you do, post pictures on my Facebook page. Let me know. Let me show me the fabrics you chose. Leave comments down below also. Let me know what you think. Is there any monsters you'd like to see in the future? So there it is, all done. Oh no, it's not. I forgot one. Guess I'll head back to my machine.